Several states reported alarming new coronavirus numbers over the weekend as the U.S. breaks single-day records of new cases at least 9 times in a month. Meanwhile, a new report recommends 18 states roll back reopening measures as President Trump defends his decision against a national mask mandate. Meredith Wood has the latest.
A grim milestone, the U.S. shattering records of daily new coronavirus cases at least 9 times in a month. Alarming new coronavirus numbers reported in several states, including Florida, which is a hot spot.
If things continue and this continues to be unmanageable, we're going to have to make some dramatic decisions, like potentially a stay-at-home order.
On Sunday, the latest numbers out of Florida showed more than 12,000 new infections and 87 deaths reported. Hospitals there are struggling to keep up with the surge of patients. Texas also seeing a sharp rise in COVID cases, as well as Georgia and Mississippi, where despite the surge, the governor is defending his decision to not issue a statewide mask mandate.
If I believed that was the best way to save lives in my state, I would have done it a long time ago.
On Fox News Sunday, President Trump also saying he would not issue a nationwide mask mandate, downplaying the virus.
I will be right eventually. You know, I said it's going to disappear. I'll say it again.
But
it's going to disappear.
Does that discredit
and I'll
you?
be right. I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think so. You know why it doesn't discredit? Because I've been right probably more than anybody else.
This comes as an unpublished report prepared by the White House Coronavirus Task Force recommends 18 states, including hard-hit Florida and California, roll back reopening measures.
This virus preys on our division. It preys when we get exhausted. It preys on us in those moments when we don't have a unified national front, or we as individuals think, this ain't going to be a big deal. We have to be as vigilant right now as we were the first day.
I'm Meredith Wood reporting.
Could your blood type make you more or less likely to get the coronavirus? And is it possible to get the virus twice? BNC's chief medical editor, Dr. Corey Hebert, joins us to break down the latest on the virus.
Okay, so this is something that's almost breaking news. We had one case where we think this has happened, and it hasn't really been vetted to the best of our science ability right now. I think the case was in Missouri, and basically what happened is that a person that tested positive very early in the pandemic, like in February, late February, March, and then went negative, had a few tests and went negative, and then tested positive again. So basically what we need to look at is that could have been a false positive test the first time or a false negative test the second time. You know what I mean? There could have been so many different variables here. But we also know that the protective antibodies, the neutralizing antibodies that we see, there was a study that came out that says, after 20 to 30 days, those antibodies are very low, if not undetectable. So could you theoretically get it again? Yes, but that's when you get into very specific things about acquired immunity versus innate immunity. And so that gets into the weeds of the science, but at the same time, it means that it's very unlikely that that would happen, because you got to remember, we've had a million cases in the world, and if we've had one case where somebody looks like they've gotten it twice, that is like an outlier. You understand what I'm saying? So that statistically, that is not something that we would have seen this a lot more if that's going to be something that's going to happen a lot. But anything can happen in the world of COVID, let me tell you. Okay, so we have 3 companies that are really funded right now, and they are pushing very, very hard to have this vaccine. Moderna's vaccine, after phase 1 trial, looks pretty good, but once again, all these things can look great in these trials, but once we get to phase 3 and you give it to 40,000, 50,000 people, and then we check their antibodies, and if their antibodies for, the neutralizing antibodies are not high, then it's not going to work. So I just want people to try to just remember, I want us to act like we will never have a vaccine. I want you to act like, remember, like at the very beginning, I told you, just act like you have the virus. Remember, I used to tell you that people used to make fun of me. Well, and now people are saying that, So, now we just need to act like we'll never have a vaccine. The reason why I say that is because if you act like that, that means you will stay at your distance and wear your mask, right? Because if you're thinking, oh, well, it'll be fine because we'll have a vaccine. Well, I don't want you to think that way, because we may not. Within the next year, we may not, because these vaccines, coronaviruses, are very, very odd viruses. They change very quickly. And so similar to like an influenza type virus, that's why every year we have to change the influenza virus. But when is the last time we changed the changed the influenza vaccine, right? Because every year it kind of changes a little bit. When is the last time we changed the MMR? We don't, because that vaccine lasts and it should last for a lifetime, because the virus is pretty stable. But coronaviruses are not very stable. So, it's going to be hard to find one. And then as we move forward, we'll be able to keep it and keep updating it. But it's going to be hard to find one. And hopefully we'll have it by March. Okay. So this is a 10-minute answer in 30 seconds. The studies that we've seen, they show that it's possible that if you have type A blood, that you may be a little bit more susceptible, and if you have type O blood, that you may be a little bit less susceptible. That's the only thing we can say from the data, but right now, there's nothing that those two things are not going to make you in any way do anything differently. So I don't want people to get in the weeds on that. Just, you need to do what you need to do, whether you have type O or type A blood, because we can't do a prospective study to look at that. We can only look at people that have had it and say, what was your blood type? And that has so many different variables in there that make it very hard to say that that's the actual breakdown.
Cuba said it recorded its first day of 0 new coronavirus cases in 130 days. Today, the head of epidemiology at the Ministry of Public Health took off his mask during the national broadcast for only the second time, delivering the good news. Only a handful of COVID-19 cases were reported in Cuba over the last week, all in Havana. Most of the Caribbean island, home to 11.2 million inhabitants, has been free of the disease for more than a month. Parts of China battled the damage caused by the worst flood to hit in decades on Saturday, as the levee was repaired and more people were rescued. Several provinces declared red alerts as heavy rain swelled rivers and lakes, flooding towns. According to the state media, one of the 3 dams burst due to heavy torrential rain and accumulated flood water, affecting more than 8,000 people in 15 villages nearby. One levee in China's largest freshwater lakes in southern China was repaired on Saturday after it burst a week ago. Breaking news out of Florida, an important state in the upcoming presidential election. Both sides have announced a settlement in the lawsuit over the state's vote-by-mail procedures. A group of voting rights groups want to expand the state's vote-by-mail process. They say the COVID-19 pandemic will lead to a record number of Floridians casting ballots from home. They're calling for a deadline extension, expanded early voting days, and free postage on mail-in ballots. The trial was set to start tomorrow, and Florida's primaries are set for August 18th. It's Entrepreneur Sunday on BNC. We'll introduce you to a cake boss whipping up a secret recipe soon to make it on store shelves. You're watching BNC 24/7.